Today's video is sponsored by Black Gold Compost Company. I want to thank the good people over at Black Gold for the generous donation of all this beautiful black cow manure that we use in our video today, and it's made a tremendous success in our garden. I've been using black cow for many years, ever since 1980, and it's always made a tremendous difference in my garden, and I've been very pleased with our product. I highly recommend it. Thank you, Black Gold, for sponsoring our channel. Welcome to part 2 of our corn series. Today's video, we're going to watch the progression of our corn after it broke the surface all the way up until harvest, and all the care that we're going to have to do and the little steps all in between. So we'll be right back after the break. Stick with me. See you in a minute. Well, welcome back. Our corn has been in the ground for 7 days. Today is day 7. And as you can see, the corn has broken the surface and it's got a couple of true leaves starting to open up, and they've done really well on the germination. So take a look down each of these rows and you can see that it's done well, and I'm really quite pleased with it so far. So we're going to be back in the days ahead. Give this another week or so and we'll take another look at it, and we'll get together and talk about what we need to do to care for these plants to help them get all the way to harvest. We'll be back soon. Well, good morning, friends. Our corn's been growing for 25 days, and as you can see, it's really made a lot of progress. Really pretty fast growing stuff. So it's exciting to see it come up and to really get some traction. And today we got to do a few things to take care of this corn, to keep it continually growing, healthy, to produce those beautiful ears of corn. So I drew up a couple of things, a couple of sketches here. I thought we'd go over to the shop and just look at the book, look at a few things that we plan to do today to take care of this corn, and then we'll come back out here and we'll jump on the job and get it done. So let's go over to the shop and take a look at the plan of the day. See you over at the shop. Okay, we made it over to the shop. All right, we're at the 3 to 4 week stage at our growing stage, and it's at this point that it becomes very, very important that we fertilize all of our corn with a high nitrogen fertilizer. The next thing we need to do is we need to hill each row. And the third thing that has now come into the picture is weed control. We really need to take care of these weeds and maintain them on out through the end of the life of this corn. So I drew up a couple little pictures here to make it easier to understand what we're going to do today. You remember a couple of weeks ago we had the germination in the emergent stage. We put in the seed and we saw the 2 little true leaves pop up very quickly. And in a very short period of time, in about 3 weeks, it's been 25 days since we actually planted, that our corn have developed some stalks, and they're about 6 to 8 inches tall. And at this point, they need some attention. The first thing we want to do is I want to fertilize right down both sides of the corn row. And I'm going to use a high nitrogen fertilizer. I'm going to use ammonium nitrate with a muriate of potash. It's a 21-0-21. That 21 is the high nitrogen number. That's the one that's important because corn just love nitrogen. They need a lot of nitrogen to grow. So I'll sprinkle that fertilizer right down the edge of the row. I don't put it right on top of the stalks. I put it right out here and right out here. And once I get that fertilizer applied, I'm going to hill the row up. See how I got a little hill right here? And there's a couple of ways you can do it. Hollis Tools makes a pretty good implement, you know, a hand tool. It's a double wheel hoe. You can run it right down your corn row and you can straddle your seedling, and it'll fold that soil right up on top of there and make a nice little hill. And that's a nice thing to do if you're going to be growing a lot of corn and grow it often. I only grow corn about every 2 or 3 years, so you know, it's not worth it to me to invest in that tool. But if that's something you want to do, Hollis Tools makes a good one. But what I'm going to do is how I'm going to do it is I'm going to put the fertilizer down. Then I take my little cultivator and I'll cultivate right down the edge of this row. Then I'll cultivate down this side of the row. Then I'll take my grading rake and I just simply pull the soil up onto the stalk, and I'll come and do it down this side, and it berms it up and heals it. That's what you call healing your corn. Okay, so I'm gonna heal my corn. What that does is it helps to support the stalk, because they get knocked around in the wind, and it can break the roots loose. If you put the heel up here, these stalks will actually grow new roots up out of that, underneath that hill, in addition to the ones that are growing off the bottom. So it makes a much better root structure if you heal your corn. And the more roots you have, the more it can feed that stalk, and that's what you want. You want it to suck up everything it can get up there to feed them ears of corn. Okay, now the next thing is, after I get all this, all my rows healed and fertilized, then the weed control becomes pretty important, because weeds want to try to compete with all the nutrients that are in the soil, and the corn is going to need everything it can get, because you don't want the weeds to starve your corn of the nutrients. So what I'll do is, after I get it healed, I'll take my cultivator and I'll go down in between every single row, and I'll keep that weed pressure down, and that'll take care of it. So this will be something to heal this corn. I do it at right about the 3 or 4 week stage, and then I may even have to do it again. Keep an eye on your corn stalks, and if they're getting knocked around in the wind and they're getting all crooked and everything, then heal it again. And when you do heal it, then fertilize it. You might want to fertilize it about every 4 weeks. So heal it up again and make sure that it's good and straight. And when you do, cultivate in between the rows to keep that weed pressure down. So that's it for today. Not a lot, not really rocket science, just a lot of work I need to get done. So it'll be well worth it. So let's head on out to the garden complex and get over there to the earth bed, and we'll get our corn taken care of, and that'll get them set for about 3 or 4 weeks, and they can really do some growing. So let's get started. We got all our corn rows healed up, and I cultivated in between the rows, as you saw me doing earlier, and got all that weed pressure out of there. So right now we're watering in our corn to try to activate that high nitrogen fertilizer and get that right to them beautiful roots. I wanted to point out that if you're healing up your corn, when you're hilling up, you're going to get some stalks that get crooked, a little bit off. Don't you worry about that. The sun's going to straighten them up. They'll pull them up in a couple, 2 or 3 days. The things will be just as straight as they ever were. So don't worry about that. Just do the best you can and don't get too OCD with it like me. But anyway, we're set. That'll be growing just terrific for at least 3 more weeks before I have to do anything to it. So we'll be back in about 3 or 4 weeks. We'll take a look at how much progress these corn stalks have made, and we'll go to the next step of what do we need to do to take care of our corn as it's growing. So we'll see you in about 3 weeks. Well, good morning, friends. Our corn has been growing for 41 days today. And as you can see, it's already up to my knees. It's doing really pretty good. We healed it up and fertilized it, and it's really taken to that fertilizer. And I'm so glad we healed it when we did, because we had a really bad heavy rain that came through here that lasted for 8 days. 8 straight days, had 11 inches of rain. And as you can see, the hills got beat down a little bit from what I had them, but not nary a stitch of the corn stalks bent over and fell down. So the hills did the job. They kept them straight, kept them supported. And not only did we have a lot of rain, heavy rain, but we had 20-mile-an-hour winds to go along with it. And it's doing pretty good. So I'm pretty pleased with it. We'll be back in the days ahead, and we'll take it to the next step so you'll understand what to expect when you're growing your corn this year. We'll be back soon. Well, welcome back, friends. Today makes 7 weeks since we planted our corn out in the earth bed, and it's really done really good. So we're going to continue to track the progress of our corn all the way out. So today is kind of a big day, kind of an important day, because we go into the second growth stage of our corn. Corn has like 2 growth stages. The first stage is the vegetative growth stage, and the second one is the reproductive growth stage. And at the beginning of the reproductive growth stage is easy to monitor, because you'll actually see a tassel start to appear on the top of our corn stalks. And for me, this is happening at 7 weeks, 6 or 7 weeks. Now, the timeline that I'm showing you on this diagram and on this demonstration is really can vary between different zones and different weathering patterns and different types of corn that you're growing. So I just wanted to point that out. This ain't a hard timeline. This is just approximately a generic timeline that I'm trying to represent here, trying to help us all the folks that have never grown corn before just have a basic idea of what to expect. The corn that I got out here right now is right at the 7-week point, and it's got a nice, tall, strong stalk. Plenty of leaves are coming out, and it's just starting to show the tassels, which actually indicates you have now entered the second growth stage of your corn, the reproductive growth stage. And after that, you'll start to see a ear of corn appear. We'll follow that as soon as that happens, but we're pretty close now. So let's take a look at how these tassels look after they start to appear out of the top of the stalk out there in the earth bed. So let's go check it out together. Well, here we are out in the corn patch, and as you can look around, you can see that this corn patch is all pretty much growing pretty evenly together, which is a good thing. I like it to all come up at the same amount of growth. So they're growing very consistently here. You can look right here, you can see one of our tassels on the corn stalk is coming out. It's really starting to come out pretty good. And if you look down all the corn rows, they all pretty much have the tassels. So as you can see, these things are about 3.5, 4 feet tall right now. So they're already going into the reproductive growth stage. So this is exciting times. So come on up and take a closer look at this tassel so you can see what I'm talking about, how it just comes straight out of the top of the corn. Well, last week we showed you some progress of the corn stalks as they were starting to produce the tassels. They were just coming out, and they grow very rapidly. As you can see, just in a matter of 7 days, all the tassels are up and they're opening. This is a good sign, because as soon as that happens, you will start to see ears of corn appear. So we'll be back here very shortly and take a look at where we're starting to grow some ears of corn. And at that point, we know we're fixing to get us some cornbread. So we'll be back soon. Well, welcome back, friends. Well, let's do a little bit more work on our little diagram here and monitoring the progress of our corn. At 8 weeks, you know, you start to see the ears and the silk will start to appear on your corn stalks, and that's a pretty exciting time. So as you go out and you look at your corn stalk, you'll see a little tiny baby ear of corn coming up right here, and you'll see some silk coming out of that ear of corn. Now this is a pretty critical stage of the development of our ears of corn. This is what I call the stress stage. What you have is there's 2 critical periods during the pollination from the tassel will release its pollen, and it'll be captured here on the silk. And for that to happen, there's 2 critical periods during pollination to avoid the stress during this period of time. And there's 2 critical periods. There's two weeks before the tassels emerge, and there's 2 weeks after the tassels emerge. The most critical period is really 8 days after you see the tassels come up out here. That's the most critical, because that's when it's going to be releasing. Okay, there's 2 things that will affect, the pollination success of your ears of corn. That is drought stress as well as heat stress. So let's talk about those 2 little items there for just a second, and then we'll go on out to the garden and take a look at this stuff. The first one let's talk about is the heat stress. Now, this has less of an impact than the drought stress. The heat stress is going to occur when the temperatures exceed 92 degrees Fahrenheit with an adequate soil moisture, or 86 degrees Fahrenheit with dry soils. And heat stress can cause those silks. You'll see the silks to start to dry up and almost, they look like they're just going to die on you. And they will not be receptive to the pollen that is floating down from those tassels. And that will result in fewer kernels of corn, down the ear. Sometimes you might not get any, and it's heartbreaking. So the heat stress can affect it. Like I said, it's much less of an impact than drought. Let's take a look at the drought. This has a much more impact on your ear of corn than heat. Inconsistent soil moisture can cause the pollen to shed and the silk emergence to get out of sync. So you want the tassel to open up and start to shed the pollen, and the silk to be out at the correct mature point of that silk, so that it can capture that pollen that's floating down. And that pollen is, it's like a powder coming down, okay? So the drought stress can result in that poor kernel set. So what you want to watch out for is you want to try to be as consistent with your water amounts and the frequency of watering as you can. The soil just needs to be kept moist, not saturated. You don't want to flood it to the point where it's standing in water out there. And the best thing to do is water it in the early mornings if you can, so the ground has all day to dry up and evaporate, and the corn can take all that water up. The corn stalks can take all that water up and go out to the silk. That's what I really want, is to keep those silks at this point nice and healthy. That's the goal. So there's about a 2-3 week period here that we really have to keep our eye on it. There ain't a whole lot you can do about the heat, but at least with the drought, you can keep your eye on it and try to be consistent as possible. That way you get the tassels and the pollen release and the silks will all be in sync at the right time, so that we get that good productive ear of corn. So let's go on out there to the earth bed and let's take a look at what to expect when your corn starts to produce the ears and the silk. Let's head on out. Well, here we are out in the corn patch, and as you can see, the corns are looking pretty good. They all got good tassels. The tassels are opening up and they're starting to shed a little bit, and we're starting to develop some small ears of corn. First thing let's just take a look at this tassel right here up close. You can see that it's starting to shed the little husk, and the little husk are actually what opens up, and there's actually the pollen inside of that little thing. It looks sort of like a seed, but that's it's the pollen that's going to come out of that little thing there is what's going to land onto the silk and pollinate that corn, that ear of corn. So let's take a look here up close at the silk, and you see the silk is still green. It looks like it's very much alive, very healthy, and that's what we want. We want to be in sync with the tassel opening and shedding the pollen, and you want the silk to be nice and healthy and green. As it's shedding that pollen, it's able to capture that pollen right onto the silk and really produce a nice ear of corn. So anyway, it's off and running. Next couple of weeks will be pretty important to keep the watering consistent. I'm fixing to water it right now. We have rain predicted for today, but I'm not sure how much I'll actually get. It doesn't look like it's going to be a whole lot. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and be sure that I have my water, because I've been watering every morning. I'm going to make sure that my ground is moistened, so that the moisture level of that soil stays consistent. If I get a little bit of rain, that's okay, and if it won't hurt it, because I have such sandy soil, that little extra water that I get from a rainstorm just fall right through it anyway. The good thing about rain, with lightning in the clouds and all the lightning that's going on, it produces more nitrogen in the rainwater, so it kind of gives it a natural fertilizer at a good time. So anyway, I hope that watching this part 2 of the corn series here has helped you, especially folks that's never grown corn before. Corn can get very scientific. If you start doing some research on it, it goes on and on and on. I mean, these corn grain farmers, I take my hat off to them guys. They really go to school for this stuff. They spend years perfecting how to grow these big cornfields. So when you see, a 5,000 acre farm of corn, you can believe them guys have done their homework. So I'm trying to just break this down as simple and basic as I can to help just a little guy like me and you that's just wanting to grow some corn out in our garden, and that we have some degree of success with it without being intimidated by all the science that goes into growing different kinds of corn. I've kept it as basic as I can. I think helps folks just to get a good idea, because you can do this. It's not that hard to do. As you can see, we've had a pretty good success, and I can't think of a place that's got worse soil than Florida sand. That's about as bad as it gets. So if I can get this corn to grow out here, surely you can. So anyway, be sure to stay tuned for part 3. We're going to take that out where we show the harvesting some of this corn and what the inside of these corn ears look like once we shuck them husk off and take a look at it. So I hope that the videos are helping you, bringing a smile to your face and some joy to your heart. and keep this corn in mind for your spring garden this year. You're probably going to want to grow some. So until me and Nancy see you on part 3, always remember, by his hands we are fed. Give us, Lord, our daily bread. Amen.
Have a blessed day.